Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast with once again your host Andy Davis here to preview week 6 of the 2024 NFL season. With me today, I've got a returning guest. If you hear our Jets season previews, you know exactly who's coming on today. It is Olivia Peebles. Olivia, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Been an interesting day, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, I'm good. How are you?
All good. Yeah, still recovering from London.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, we are actually recording this show before our review show of week 5 that is to come. We are recording that in a couple of hours' time. So for those of you wondering why in week 5 we didn't talk about London as much, then that is why. And yeah, still recovering from that. So for those who don't know, I did obviously go to the pub after the games, after the media duty, spend a few hours with the franchise tag boys who've been on the show before, many of them, including Sky, who came on in the week 5 preview episode last week, and didn't get back until my house in Cardiff until 3 a.m. And then I had an alarm for work at 6 a.m. So let's say yesterday was a bit, or Monday, for those listening on Wednesday or Thursday, Monday was a write-off basically. And annoyingly, not annoyingly because it's always good going to cinema, but I did also have the cinema booked for 7 p.m. So that you got off the bus at 3 o'clock, or from at the house on the bus at 3 o'clock, up at 6, in work from 8 until 5, back home, then watched Joker 2, and then went to bed. Yesterday I was so tired, but it was worth it. I mean, maybe not for you as much, but I thought Sunday was a really good day as an NFL UK fan because I found like it seemed to be mostly all Jets and Vikings. For me, it was one of the best atmospheres I've experienced ever at a London game.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. I've not been to many London games. I'll say that before I kind of make the next comment. I've been to this one and then the Jets Falcons one 3 years ago now. And I watch the games on TV every year. And it always seemed noticeable that, yeah, you do have home jerseys, you have away jerseys, but a vast majority of people are in kind of their own team's jersey, which is absolutely fine. But this year for this game, it felt like there was the vast majority were Vikings jerseys and Jets jerseys, and then everyone else sprinkled in. The atmosphere was brilliant. I can't praise the Vikings fans enough. They were great. It just really felt like a Vikings home game, and I say that in the nicest way I can as a Jets fan. It was just a really good atmosphere. I'm sure you'll know a little bit more about the London games and the atmosphere and what that like, but I was really impressed with it this year.
Yeah, I found it the same last year when the Bills came to town. It was the same thing then. And I do have my inside sources, and my inside sources tell me that they are trying to hone in more on getting more fans of these teams. And I don't know how much I can say about this, but yeah, definitely is work in progress. I think potentially on that. Before we get on to previewing week 6, talking more about London, of course, breaking news as of literally about 5 hours ago. The Jets have fired Rob Saleh. So I had the luxury of being one of the last people to ever ask him a question at a press conference on Friday. Obviously, no one knew what was to come. I personally am quite surprised. I know obviously 2 and 3 start isn't the best, but only one win behind the Bills, top of the AFC East, and yeah, I'm surprised. What's your take? As someone who watches the Jets week in, week out, every game in full. Are you surprised? Are you happy? Are you sad? What's your take on the Rob Saleh firing?
Yeah, I'm very surprised as well that it's happened specifically today. So I'm not sure what's gone on behind the scenes. Maybe we get a few leaks in the next couple of hours or so. But I'm not massively surprised that it has came to this. Sunday wasn't great. The second half was much better, but ultimately, it wasn't what we wanted, and that doesn't just come down to Salah. Absolutely not. Rodgers, Hackett, a bunch of other offensive players, which we'll get to. But I am sad because I was full of hope for Robert Saleh. He came out with San Francisco with an amazing reputation, full of energy, full of passion. He really wanted to turn the Jets around, and you could see that he was the complete opposite to Adam Gase. in a lot of ways. And it is sad that it's ended up like this, but I think it's time. And I know I've seen a few people on social media saying it's a bit harsh. Why is Salah going when you've got Hackett and our offensive line coach still there? Yeah, I agree with them. Hackett has been a disaster. But ultimately, Robert Salah's the head coach, and while he gets praise for the defensive side of the game, he needs to take the blame for the offensive side of the game as well. And it was time for him to take accountability. And Woody Johnson clearly thinks that the Jets have a roster that should be competing, and we should be doing better than what we are. But like you said, we are still very close in the AFC East. I think if we beat the Bills, we go first, which is wild considering how our season's gone. But yeah, so it's a bit of mixed feelings. I'm sad it didn't work out for him, but I think the excuses have finally ran out. And while it's a surprise, it's it was bound to happen, I think.
Yeah, I think I think we talked about before the fact that he had quite a lot of get out of jail free cards. Think about last year Rodgers injured for the whole year. You can sort of and before that you can blame it on Zach Wilson and all that. But he was the one. He was part of the people that picked him to draft Zach Wilson. He was part of the people that went out and got Aaron Rodgers. So for me, it's he can't really blame anything else now. He's got Rodgers there. He's healthy. You've got Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Alan Lazard, Mike Williams, Tyler Conklin on offense, and you can't. There's no more excuses basically. I saw my sleeper app. My sleeper app told me that he was informed of the decision. If I get this right, it's according to Schultz report that he was fired this morning. Then escorted out of the building by team security. Now I don't know who that is.
I'll squash that actually, because one of our beat reporters, Connor Hughes, has actually said that wasn't true. He didn't get escorted out. Kind of, it sounds like he's had a fight, doesn't it? But that was actually squashed. But still, the point remains. It was unexpected for him, which kind of says it all, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's a quick decision, but I suppose you've got to admire it away just rather than letting it go out and longer. If he doesn't want him anymore, then that maybe that's time to just do it now, rip off the band-aid, and hope for the best and hope that that's the right decision. I want to quickly, you mentioned about beat reporters. I had the actual pleasure of meeting a New York beat reporter on Friday when I went to the Jets practice session, where I did get to interview Rob Salah. Andy Vasquez. So Andy, if you are listening, shout out to Andy Vasquez if you are listening to this podcast. Very nice to meet him. He was a very interesting man. Had a lot of good stories to tell me, and I've now got him on Instagram, so we'll keep in contact that way. And yeah, staying with the Friday session, we talked about it again. We talked about it in our face-to-face episode last week. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers, I can't. He was such a cool man. I can't think any more highly of him. He was actually even more in a good mood after the loss, which I thought, knowing what the media portrays him as, he maybe would be a bit spiky or a bit, maybe a bit not the most compromising with the media. But yeah, he was really, really sound. And Friday, the same thing. And it was an absolute honour to be able to ask him a question, even though it was asked in a really bad way. I absolutely fumbled the question. It was just really cool to ask, four-time MVP, Super Bowl champion, one of the best ever quarterbacks to ever do it, a question. And the whole day was really well run, and it's overall really good weekend in London. And we got obviously 2 more weekends to come, to keep an eye out on our socials for content, as well as my own TikTok, Andy Talks NFL. Did a few fan interactions over the Sunday. 3 questions I asked were: what is the maddest thing you give up to see your team win a Super Bowl? Don't say a word till you hear a player better than Aaron Rodgers. And also it was basically a controversial opinion piece. So that's all to come in the next few weeks on the channel, as well as more pre and post-match press conferences, footage from the game itself, everything you want from content. Do keep an eye out on all socials. That is @cross_the_pod on Instagram and Twitter, or X, and Andy Talks NFL on TikTok. So let's head to our predictions. So before we go on to our week 6, we have actually not mentioned our previous results. So Sky came on last week from the franchise tag. He had 9 points. I had 7 correct scores. Where in week 4, Greg Kett had 11 correct scores, whereas I had 9, which is crazy considering that he had his Titans losing to my Dolphins, and I had my Dolphins losing to the Titans. So that means that the leaderboard, it is now him and Sam Andrews top of the leaderboard with 11 correct scores. We've got it a bit more tougher because we are doing it on a bye week, so slightly less games to do there. But we do start off on Thursday Night Football. Game I may be actually watching at the Hippodrome with Sky from the Franchise Tigers, where Gareth. Niners at Seattle. Interesting game. Both teams lost last week, somewhat in surprise fashion, losing to the Cardinals and Giants, respectively. So both teams coming off a loss, which is always a danger for a team when you're playing them. So that evens out the playing field. I'm going to go for a win for the Niners. Olivia, who are you going for?
Yeah, I think both teams have had a little bit of a bumpy start to the season, up and downs. So both will be gunning for it. Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I think the 49ers will be the ones to bounce back. I think they just have that little bit more quality in their team.
Okay, moving on to Sunday. Actually, before we do that, actually, I very remiss of you. I've not actually asked you about your London experience. I mean, you mentioned the game itself, but I saw a few bits on Twitter about the tailgates and all that. How was your experience in terms of the overall day in London? What did you do afterwards? How was your day sort of overall in London?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a crazy weekend, actually. So I'd just been on holiday for a week. So I came back on the Friday, and then I travelled down to London on the Saturday. So it was non-stop for like 10 days. So on the Saturday, I actually went to, for those who wouldn't know, I suppose, I'm a big Middlesbrough fan, and we played Watford away. And
I saw that, yeah.
It's not brilliant either. We conceded we were 1-0 up, conceded 2 in like the 80th minute. But it was cool, tick off a new ground, whatnot, we moved. I didn't manage to go on the evening, but the Jets had a touchdown tailgate, I believe it was called, which looked really cool. They had former players, they had cornhole, merch to sell, a DJ. It just looked like a really chill space. So I'm not sure if there's anything like that for the Bears Jags this on Sunday, but if there is, even going as a neutral, it looks really cool. And then obviously our game on Sunday obviously wasn't the greatest from a Jets perspective. Aaron Rodgers had a little bit of a nightmare, but we'll gloss over that. And we had our pre-match get-together, and it was just insane. The Vikings fan club, shout out to them, they were brilliant. We kind of had 2 pubs next to each other, and the atmosphere was just brilliant. I think overall there's around over 1,000 people, both Jets and Vikings fans. A lot of JETS, Jets, a lot of skulls, a lot of flares as well. So yeah, it was just a really, really cool atmosphere. And despite the result, it was a fantastic weekend.
Yeah, I thought it was in good spirit. Now, there was a bit of a animosity where we were. There was a beer snake going on, and they were starting to chop the cups, and they were starting to hit like journalists' head around me. And it was at one point as a journalist who actually told them to just to stop it, really. And it was getting a bit at one point a bit hostile, because I know they're only plastic cups, but the way they smashed against the tables, it was. I think that could do some real damage if if it is hitting someone's head. And I'm not telling people to not have fun, but I think at the same time I do worry that if this thing happens and someone does get hurt, which it may not happen, but it may do, and if that happens, then you could easily see at one point them introducing no beer in your seat. Now that could be probably not going to happen because it's a different sport, a different governing body, and all that kind of stuff, and they allow it in America, and there's always fights there anyway. So probably wouldn't be banned, but yeah, it's just I just think people, if you are listening and you are going to a game, if you're going to do a beer steak, just be careful, because it doesn't look the most comfortable to be hit on the head with. But we'll move on to the 6 p.m. slate on the Sunday. First of all, of course, the game in London, at the second of 2 Tottenham games, the second of 3 games in London, as the Jaguars are the away team in Tottenham, as they always are, against the Bears. Olivia, I'll let you go first. Bears or Jags?
Yeah, it was a good win by the Bears last Sunday. Caleb Williams really came into his own a little bit, and the Jaguars got a must needed win as well. I think I'm going to go for the Bears. I think that it will be quite a tight game. I think there'll be one score in it. But I'm going to go with the Bears. I'd like to see it. Got some brilliant players. So hopefully for the London crowd, it's another tight but exciting game.
Yeah, I hope so. I think this might be the best one just gone, Jets Vikings, but you never know. You never know. I think, on paper, it's two not very good teams, but one average team, one not very good team. Their record suggests that, but it might be good. It might be entertaining, and especially with the Jags having the London edge, I think that could cause a good atmosphere. But I've got the Bears winning as well. Firstly, because Bears have got more wins this season. I think Williams, I'm still not convinced, but he is improving each week. And John J. Swift had a great game last week. And as well, a little bit of an inside scoop. One of the emails I got from NFL Communications about the plan for the week. The Bears have a training session on the Wednesday, which is unlike NFL teams. Normally, you have the Friday session, sometimes Saturday, but definitely not I've never seen that on a Wednesday before. I think the Falcons may have been Thursday last year. I didn't go to that one, but yeah, I think the fact that we see a lot of times in London games, we see the team who's been there the longest tends to win for jet lag and all that kind of stuff. I think we see some teams like the Bills last year up against the Jags. The Bills they arrived, I think, literally on the either Friday or Saturday morning, literally. And whereas the Jags were already there from the week before. And I don't know when the Jags arrive. According to my schedule, they're only doing one training session open to the media. So I don't know whether they're doing that because they know go an extra week. Probably is the case. And I think that could be in the Bears' advantage. I think the Bears have been better anyway this season. Adding that factor, I do think the Bears get the win here. Moving on to Commanders against Ravens. One of the hardest to pick, I must admit. I found this game really hard to predict because I've glossed all over the Ravens in recent times, and I even glossed over them in both an article and TikTok. I'm putting out either tonight or tomorrow night about my week 5 winners and losers. And the Ravens, for me, are an amazing, amazing team. And I think they are, for me, still my pick to win the Super Bowl, despite their defensive struggles. And then the Commanders have been amazing. The first time they're 4-1 since 2008. Jane Daniels is looking right now like Defensive Rookie of the Year. So it's really tough. Now, with the Ravens defense, I don't think it's great, but I don't think the Commanders defense is either. I know they did well against the Browns, but the Browns have real struggles at the quarterback position. So it leaves me in a tough predicament. I'm going to go for home advantage. I'm going to go for the Ravens. I think that might just be it because Daniels is due a welcome to the NFL moment. He is due that sort of. He had the first game where he struggled a little bit, maybe first 2 games, but since then he's been lights out. And I think maybe he's due against a really good defense who I think they're not that great allowing points, but they do have, I believe, still the number 1 run defense or number 1 pass defense in the NFL, at least top 3. And I think this could be a game where, defense just really shows Jane Daniels how tough the NFL is. And I think, one thing we saw with the Ravens against the Bengals, that you can never count them out. You can never count the Ravens out. Derrick Henry, when the chips are down, you can rely on him to get you the win or get you close to the win. So I think the Ravens win it, but I found this one the hardest to predict. And I was ignoring even until just a minute ago. It was that tough for me. But Olivia, who are you picking for your winner here?
Yeah, give me the Ravens as well. I think they will be one of the Super Bowl contenders. They do need to tighten up that defense. They did have a bit of a rocky start to the season, but Lamar Jackson, I love watching him, and I think he will be an MVP candidate. He's just so enjoyable, so entertaining. Derrick Henry in the mix, and it's magic. So yeah, I think the home factor will just give them the edge. But shout out Commanders, they've been brilliant. I had them kind of down and out at the beginning of the season. I'm sure a lot of people did, to be fair. But Jaden Daniels, absolutely fair player. That's the thing. So I will go Ravens as well.
Okay, so next up we're having to Green Bay at Lambeau Field as the Packers host the Cardinals. Olivia, who's winning this game?
That's a tough one. I think, again, the Cardinals have surprised me. I didn't think they'd be a bad team by any stretch, but I thought they'd kind of be middle of the road. But they look like fighters. They look like they can definitely make the playoffs, in my opinion. The Lambeau Field kind of advantage as well. The Packers look brilliant. There's some good games this week actually, isn't there? Yeah, give me the Packers. I think they're one of my favourites for the NFC. I do appreciate all these takes, ice cold, but they just know how to win. The Packers, regardless, and they seem to have an insane amount of luck as well with injuries and well to an extent. But yeah, I'm going to say the Packers, but I think it'll be a close game.
I'm glad someone else is on the Packers board with me, apart from maybe Ash, our Packers fan. I said it before the season started. I still think it now. For me, they win the NFC. I think they're just really good. And I think you see with the Packers. I mentioned before, so I'm probably repeating myself here, but the young receiving core they've got is just fantastic. Reed, Wicks, Watson, Dobbs, and I know Dobbs actually is going to play for a few weeks, but the throw you saw from Jordan Love to Jaden Reed on the weekend just gone, it was one head of a throw. I think if it wasn't for Lamar Jackson, his throw to Isaiah Likely in that comeback against Bengals, I think this would be the play of the week, or at least a throw of the week. That was such an amazing. I love Jaden Reed. I think he's a really, really good receiver. And I think this team, for me, wins it as well. I think the Packers beat the Cardinals. I'm not convinced by the Cardinals' defense. Offense, yes, but I'm not that convinced by their defense. And I think Packers, could win it by double digits. I really do. I think at home, they're a much better team in every aspect. And I do feel like, Love, or whether it's Reed, or whether it's Wicks or Watson, I think this team's going to get touchdowns, get points. And I think this will be an easy win for the Packers. Speaking of easy wins, I think the Texans do beat the Patriots in New England in our next game. I think the Texans, don't think they've been quite as good as we thought they'd be. Still winning games. Beat the Bills, obviously narrowly the other day in last weekend. And the Patriots, they really should have beaten us. They really should have beaten us in the game on Sunday. Had the pleasure again of watching that with a Patriots fan in Sky, of course, who was on the show last week. That was fun. Although, it was. I talked about it more in the last episode about our experience watching the Ravens Bengals. Well, we'll be doing it in a couple of hours' time in the show before this one comes out. But when we were watching it on Red Zone, we couldn't hear Scott Hanson because we were, we were watching it in a pub, so you couldn't hear Scott Hanson at all, really. So we weren't sure what was actually happening at the end of that game. We couldn't quite work out whether they spiked the ball, whether they missed a chance to spike the ball. But it was a great feeling to win a game, and something we've not done since week one. I think the Patriots, they have been better than we thought. They've been a lot more close in games. If you take away the Jets game, they've been very close in all their losses, and they put up a fight in most of their games. And I think, again, they'll make it tight here. I think this could be upset of the week. It has potential to be upset of the week, but I think the Houston Texans will be too strong on offense to not win this game. But Olivia, who's winning this game for you?
Yeah, there was rumbling that the Patriots were maybe thinking about starting Drake May this game, which is an interesting choice. I'm not necessarily saying it's the right or wrong choice, but it'd be really interesting to see if he gets his season debut here. Well, sorry, no, that's a lie. He has played his first start, I should say. I think the Texans are too strong. I think you're right. The Texans are really odd, not in a bad way this season, but they don't seem to have been playing to the standards they were last season. But their record is still, it still speaks for itself. It's still good. It's just the one loss, I believe. I think the Texans, I think they'll win it quite comfortably. And maybe they can start hitting a bit more of that elite offensive strides that we kind of came to see last year. The Patriots, they battled, but I'm still envisioning a top 3 pick for them come the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree. Next up is a game in New Orleans as the Saints host the Bucks. Olivia, Bucks or Saints?
I'm going to go Buccaneers. Derek Carr seemed to have suffered a nasty injury last night with his oblique, from memory. So that's going to be a bit of a morale hit. And I do really like the Buccaneers. Shout out Todd Bowles because obviously former Jets head coach got fired, went back to being a DC, and then has obviously came back, learned his lessons, and has done a really solid job. And maybe that's what Rob Salah's future looks like. But yeah, I love Baker Mayfield. I think he's fun to watch as well. I really like his story. I really like his tenacity. And yeah, I just overall really, really root for the Bucs, I suppose. So yeah, I think they'll take one over New Orleans as they slide into their usual mediocrity. That's a bit hard, but still. Yeah.
Yeah, I got Bucks as well. I think even if Carl was healthy, I do think the Bucks have won this game. The Saints were obviously amazing these first 2 weeks, and we were all saying, could they be a Super Bowl contender? But I think we've seen in the last 3 weeks or so, they're not really the team. They're basically the team we thought they'd be start of the year, a 7-win team, an 8-win team. I think, we talk about it again. We will talk about it in our Saints Chiefs. So by the time you heard this podcast, we already have talked about the Saints Chiefs from last night. And yeah, I thought the Saints had their moments. There was a good touchdown early on in the game, but overall, yeah, I think this Buccaneers team, showed a lot of fight in the Falcons' loss. They did really well. Really, most days they'd have won that game. I think it's just down to an amazing performance from Kirk Cousins. So yeah, I think the Bucs win this game, maybe by about 10 points. Next up is the struggling Cleveland Browns hosting the Eagles, and that's really a spoiler into my prediction. I'm going for the Eagles to win this game. I'm really high on the Eagles. I think they will beat the Browns. I think the Browns are really struggling. There'll come a point where they will probably bench Sean Watson and maybe even cut him. I think the whole thing with the game last week against the Commanders, where Stefanski wanted to call fourth down and go for it on fourth down, Sean Watson just walks off. Now, is that Stefanski not having the control of the locker room, or whether is it just Deshaun Watson being a diva? We don't know. But either way, it was a worrying sign, and his whole season's been a worrying, or really since he joined the Browns, been a worrying on the field performance from him. He's not really played well at all. Had maybe 1 or 2 games here and there where he's played well, but not many, and be nowhere near the quarterback that we saw in Houston. And I think this Eagles defense will torment him. I think if they're going to bench him in a game, if that happens this season, it wouldn't shock me if this is the game. I think this Eagles defense, this Eagles defensive line, is going to cause some real problems for Deshaun Watson. And I think that this might be generally one of the easier wins of the week. I genuinely believe that. I think Watson, this could be the game where he's dropped. I do believe that. So give me the Eagles over the Browns. Olivia, share the same sentiment?
Yeah, absolutely. I do feel for the Browns fans because it doesn't seem like they can catch a break, apart from that kind of 1 or 2 random season. But the Browns made their bed with that Deshaun Watson contract. They deserve to lie in it, and I think Stefanski will lose his job because of it. I'm not saying that it's necessarily his fault because he's not the GM, but I don't think he will be at the Browns next season. Yeah, I mean, barring all the obvious ethical and legal issues with Deshaun Watson, I'm not sure who in their right mind would give any quarterback, really, even Mahomes, a fully guaranteed contract that was worth that much. And considering he hadn't played for nearly 2 years when they offered him that, that's just, I mean, I'm a Jets fan. I know incompetence when I see it, but that is that still blows my mind. That is, I mean, it might be a bit of a reactionary hot take, but gotta be up there for one of the worst trades ever. I would say in the whole of sport, but I don't really, I don't have the knowledge. But it's a horrific trade, and they're reaping it's just awful in Cleveland at the moment. So I do feel for the fans, but the Eagles are going to storm all over them, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I think it is one of the worst trades of all time. I really do think that. I'm trying to think of on top of my head. You can think of Mike Ditka giving away all his draft picks to get Ricky Williams. There's loads I've probably forgotten about. Obviously, you think about, I think sport-wise, I'm thinking top of my head of things like, the Arsenal, Man U, Sanchez and Mkhitaryan swap. That was pretty bad. But in terms of NFL, that's just me. I know I've been a fan 14 years, proper fan of the NFL 8, 9 years, whatever it is. I don't think I've seen a worse trade in my time being a fan. Anyway, I don't think you can, because the money thing, first of all, I mean, even some trades in years gone by weren't offering over $200 million guaranteed, and all the draft capital as well, considering how the Texans have done since they got that draft capital from the Browns for Watson, and how well they've done really since that happened, how badly the Browns have done, and how good they did without him last season. They got to the play. No, they did. They got to the playoffs without him there. It's just an awful trade. The one I can think of is a Herschel Walker in terms of their side of the thing. The one they got, I think they got rid of players, and they got, I think, there's these 2 Cowboys legends they got, and I've actually, their names passed me by now. The Herschel Walker trade. That's the only one I can think of that goes anywhere as bad as Watson. So I think that has to be one of the worst trades. Certainly the last 5 years has to be the worst trade of the last 5 years, without a doubt, in the NFL. Unlike the Goff Stafford trade, which is probably the best trade of all time, because both teams won out of that trade. So, yeah, not good times in Cleveland. Final lot of the 6 p.m. game sees the Titans host the Colts. Olivia, Colts or Titans?
This is very much a mid-off, isn't it? I don't mean to be rude, but, I'll call it what it is. It is 2 very average to slightly below average teams. Although I will say Joe Flacco had a great game by all accounts. He seems to have done amazingly well, apart from that one time he was at the Jets where he was absolutely horrible. So take from that what you wish. But it's nice to see kind of players past their prime, I suppose, coming into their own as they get a little bit older. I think that's the nicest way of putting it. But yeah, it seems like he might be starting again this week. I'm not sure what Anthony Richardson's injuries look like. I think that's really tough. It's a tough one, that, because I think they are quite evenly matched. I'm going to say the Colts, just purely on quarterback to quarterback matchup. Will Levis he's turned into a bit of a meme, hasn't he, recently? Well, this season, which is unfortunate for him, because he did have a really solid year last year, and it seems like he could have built on it. But he's just made some incredibly rash decisions, and I'll be surprised if he's the starting quarterback in November, December time. But yeah, I think it'll be close. I think it'll be quite a boring game. I think it'll be low score. I think it'll be like a field goal in it. Now that I've said that, it's going to be like 48 thriller, isn't it? But yeah, I think the Colts will take this one.
Yeah, I've got the Colts as well. I mean, on paper, the Titans have a bye week, so they've had an extra week to prepare. I could go with the Titans, but no, I just think that Joe Flacco has proved in his time that he can be a very capable starter, like he proved last year as well. So I think I know they had their struggles in the game against the Jags, but they put up loads of points. They put up 34 points, I want to say. This is the team that, they're obviously, we all know they can't win in Jacksonville. They haven't done it in 10 years. So I think they'll get back to winning ways this week. I think Flacco will pull out. I think you could see Adonai Mitchell having his sort of welcome to NFL moment, getting him involved. And I think the Colts, overall get back to winning ways. Speaking of bye weeks, the Chargers play in week 6 after their week 5 bye week. They travel to the Denver Broncos, who themselves got a win against the Raiders last week. I'm going for the Chargers to win. They're off a bye week. They're a better team anyway. And I think that's really all I need to say. It's that simple for me. Chargers win. Olivia, Broncos or Chargers?
Yeah, pretty easy for me, the Chargers. The Broncos, I mean, they've won 2 in a bounce, so I can't they've won ugly, but they've won. But I don't think that's due to their competence. I think it's due to their opposition. Obviously, one notably being the Jets, and the Raiders, who seem a little bit dysfunctional at the moment. But yeah, I don't see anything. I think the Broncos' defense is good. They definitely showed out against the Jets a couple of weeks ago. But I think the Chargers, they look confident. And hopefully this is the year where Justin Herbert can make a run, because I do really like the Chargers. I'm pretty sure it's because they have a nice uniform, though. But I do like Justin Herbert, and it'd be cool to see them give the Chiefs a run for the money, which I don't think will happen. But you never know. You never know. I think it'll be an easy win. I think we're talking double digits.
Yeah, I think the Broncos have got 2 wins, but I think the fact they beat you guys with, I think, 60 passing yards from Bo Nix, uh, I don't know how they want to go. That probably should have been where Salah got fired there and then, that game alone. That must have been, I can't imagine what that must have been like. Next up, we're going to Vegas as the Raiders host the Pittsburgh Steelers. Olivia, Raiders or Steelers?
Yeah, I'm going to go Steelers. Like I just mentioned, the Raiders seem a little bit disorganized, I suppose, which isn't a massive shock. I don't think it would be to anyone. There's questions about the quarterback coming into the season. Obviously, with rookie head coach, it was a little bit. We don't know what we expected from Las Vegas, but I think their season will peter out. Obviously, the Devante Adams trade rumors are very much in the works, and it seems like it's imminent. But nothing is ever imminent in the NFL. Not that he's been massively productive, but he's still, he's still a weapon for them. But it definitely seems like not giving up on the season, but they're kind of assessing it. It's a transitional year, to say the least. The Steelers, they're really gritty. It's everything you expect in a Mike Tomlin team. Justin Fields has been really interesting this season. I feel like he's definitely showed improvements from Chicago, but I don't think he's absolutely solidified himself as the starter. Like, I could see a time where Russell Wilson is starting. I'm not saying that will happen, but it's also kind of an interesting team there. I think the Steelers, like I said, that grit, that tenacity, that defense, I think, they'll just suffocate the Raiders, and I think it'll be a pretty comprehensive win.
I've got Steelers too. This is the repeat of the immaculate reception game back all those years ago between the two teams. I think the Steelers win. I'm not that convinced on Pittsburgh. I think they're one of the worst ever 3-0 teams I've ever seen, but they got the win. That's down to Tomlin, and it's a good time to get wins because their schedule second half of the year is awful. I think they get the win here. I think they move to 4-2. If it's like 4-2, yeah. I think they almost won on Monday Night Football. So Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys. I think they'll ease to this. I think the Raiders. I think the fact that they didn't go for a quarterback, they went for Minshew and had kept Aiden O'Connell. Maybe they were preparing to draft a quarterback high next year and have a bad season. I don't know, but I think they will struggle again when the only real weapon of any real worth is not playing in Devontae Adams. Michael Mayer, that's not like Brock Bowers looks good, but he's a rookie. So I think the fact they haven't got Adams either now, he's not playing. I think the Steelers win this, and I think this is probably my top 3 of the easiest games this week to predict. I think the Steelers win this by a landslide. Next up is the Falcons going to Carolina to take on the Panthers. Again, this is pretty easy. The Falcons are 10 times the team the Panthers are. They've had an extra 3 days to rest. And I think the Falcons win this very easily. Kirk Cousins had an amazing performance, over 500 yards in that game, in that win against the Buccaneers. And I think the Panthers team, they got a win, granted, yes, but I don't think they'll get a win in the near future. I think they could be a 2-win team the whole year. And I think the Falcons look really good. Cousins has won 2 games in prime time in just the first 5 games alone, which is something he doesn't normally do. So kudos to him, to Raheem Morris, to the offense. Defense has been a bit shaky, but the offense deserves a lot of praise. Algier, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and obviously Kirk Cousins. They've been really impressive on offense for me, and I think they will ease to victory over the Carolina Panthers. Olivia, Falcons.
Yeah, I do think Atlanta will win. I do think the Panthers will get the number 1 pick in next year's draft, and I do think they'll go quarterback. Which is, they're going through the motions. They've been through it for the past couple of years. I do feel for them. But, who knows what will happen for them in the future. You've seen how quickly the likes of the Texans have been able to turn it around. The Bengals a few years ago now. The Jaguars to an extent. So there is always hope in the NFL. That's probably the best part of unless you're a Jets fan, apparently, the best part about the NFL is that there's always hope and there's always time to turn it around. But yeah, I do think they'll get beat comfortably. But I'm not actually massively sold on the Falcons yet, which I know they are quite a trendy team, dare I say it. People are high on them with Falcons and all the offensive weapons. I'm not massively sold on them. I feel like I can't remember. I know they beat the Bucks, and I've just been raving about the Bucks about 20 minutes ago. But I'd like to see them face a stronger test, and I'd be curious to see how they do, especially against someone who has a stronger offense. Don't get me wrong. The Bucks did well offensively against them, but I would like to see them face against a contender, definitely a playoff team. See how they do there. There's just something about them. I think it's the defense. I think it might be the rookie head coach. I'm just not massively sold yet, but it might change. You never know. Still plenty of football to be played. But yeah, they'll walk all over the Panthers, I think.
That should be a very easy one. This one for me, I found was one of the hardest to predict. The Detroit Lions taking on the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. Olivia, who's winning this game?
That is a hard one to predict. I'm gonna go. I suppose it is a slight upset, maybe. Dallas's season has been a little bit up and down, but I'm gonna go Dallas over the Lions. I'm not actually sure who would be favourite for this game. Thinking about it, I'm not sure which way the betting markets would go. Let's go Dallas. I'm not sure what Micah Parsons' health is looking like going into this week. If he's back, that's a big boost, but I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I mean, Dak Prescott, is he an elite quarterback? No, but I think he's good. And I think he does get some harsh criticism at times, and I understand why they signed him for a lot of money, mind, but I do understand the kind of thinking behind it. The Lions have maybe not been as solid as some people may have expected, but again, it's early days. They'll go into the season, I have no doubt. I think it'll be very interesting to see them, the Packers and the Vikings, actually fighting in that division. I think it's very intriguing. But I'll say Cowboys, and I think it'll be something like, it'll be a field goal or something really close. It'll go down to the last play or something. I think it'll be a good game, though. Hopefully, anyway.
Well, this is actually amazing. The first game of this episode where we've gone for a different team to win. Yeah. It's been the exact same team the entire time until now. Because I'm going for the Lions to beat the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys have been hit and miss. I've not been that impressed with them. I think the Lions, haven't been quite as good as last year so far. But I think they're pound for pound one of the best teams in the NFL overall roster-wise. And I think as well, adding the fact that the Cowboys played on Sunday night, the Lions had a bye week. I think this will give them the edge. I think the Cowboys are going to be a team, I think, they're going to win one week, not win the next. I think be a bit hit and miss, up and down. So I think for that reason as well, I'm going to give the Lions to win this game over the Cowboys in Dallas and somewhat amend for that playoff loss they had with Matt Stafford all those years ago with I think it was the double reverse PI call. I think that or holding was one of the two. Moving on to probably is actually way less exciting than maybe would have been preseason. Bengals going to the Giants to take on the Giants at MetLife Stadium, called back-to-back nights playing at that stadium. So good luck to the ones who are running that stadium trying to organise the pro shop. I think the Bengals win it. I know they've been underwhelming, but the fact they put up 4 touchdowns, the 5 he had Joe Burrow, and to lose the game, Jamar Chase had all these yards, a touchdown or 2, and they should have won the game. They had the chance to win it with McPherson in overtime, and I think that shows to me that they actually are nowhere near a 1-4 team. I think they've been way better than what the record suggests, and I think they get the win here. The Giants, they won it against the Seahawks, but they're not a good team, and I think the Bengals, for me, have so much talent on that offense, especially. Defense is very questionable, but on offense, extremely good offense, and I think they will win this game over the Giants. Olivia, your penultimate prediction, Giants or Bengals?
Yeah, we've gone back to agreeing. I think the bit like you've said, the Bengals have had a pretty rough start to the season. They're not where the AFC is shaped up. they're in no way out of it. I think they can potentially play themselves back into a playoff picture. It'll be tough, but I think Joe Burrow is good enough to do so. As long as he stays healthy, that's the key thing. The Giants, it seemed I didn't see any of their game admittedly, but it seems like they had quite a gutsy win against Seattle. That field goal attempt was a pretty cool player. Seems like Dabble had a good coaching game, but ultimately, I think that they're a pretty meh team, which is a bit bizarre because when you look at the roster, they have some great players. Lauren, Malik Neighbours, I don't think he played actually on Sunday, but he's he's a star in the making. It seems Wandale Robinson seemed to have a good game. So in their offensive line, it seems to show up, but still, there's just something about them where they're very meh, and that meh is probably Daniel Jones, which is harsh, but like he seems to have been solid. But I really hope for the Giants' sake, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, that he doesn't play himself into another year in New York, because I just don't think he's good enough. What you want to do in the NFL is you want a quarterback who will win you the Super Bowl, and Daniel Jones could have a solid season, but he ain't winning you the Super Bowl. That contract was also ridiculous. Not as ridiculous as the Watson one, granted, but I think they should be looking at a quarterback next year. But yeah, I think it'll be a convincing win for the Bengals, and I think they might kickstart the season. I've not seen their schedule, but yeah, I think they have a little bit too much quality.
Let's get it up. I'm going to quickly get this Bengals. I think, judging by the Steelers schedule, could be quite. I think it's quite a tough year for the AFC North. But so they got the Giants on Monday for us, but Sunday for those listening in America. Then they got the Browns. That's probably a win there. They got the Eagles and Ravens, which is probably a loss in both. But in between that, they got the Raiders. They got the Chargers. The Chargers, they could easily win that. The Steelers, that's a tough game in Pittsburgh, but you never know. Cowboys been hit and miss. They play them after that. They play the Titans. That could be a win. They play the Browns again, the Broncos, and then the Steelers. So yeah, it's sort of hit and miss. It's like an 8-8 schedule. It's like it's not horrendous, but it's not really easy either. So I think maybe they'll get run together. I think this is a team that I think the only team that's really given the Chiefs any sort of problems in the last 5 years. You think about winning the AFC Championship game, coming back in that game, following it, almost winning it again, almost beating them just a few weeks ago as well. The Bengals have the Chiefs number, and I think the NFL needs a friend in the industry on Sunday was saying the NFL needs the Bengals to do well, because they are the only team that can stop the Chiefs winning. Because Ravens have tried it, they couldn't beat them in the big game. Bills can't beat them in any big game, but the Bengals have, and they've given them a good run of money in other games as well. So I think the NFL needs the Bengals to win this game, and I think they'll get hopefully a run going together. And if they get a run going and everyone's healthy, this team I think is genuinely dangerous on offense. Defense will be their kryptonite, but I think offense-wise, yeah, it's a really exciting group, and I think it'd be a shame if they don't make the playoffs, because I think they'll make it a great playoffs if they make it, but who knows? Might not be their year after all. Finally, our final game is, of course, involving your team, Olivia, in the New York Jets, taking on the Buffalo Bills. As you're the guest, as is your team, I'll give you the honours of going first. Bills or Jets?
I mean, if you'd asked me, 6 hours ago, 7 hours ago, I would have said Bills, probably, the way we performed on Sunday. Now I think it's a coin toss. I don't think the NFL is. I think that the new manager bounce, what you hear talk about in football a lot, I think that does apply to the NFL. I mean, I've got no data, facts, proof to back that up. It's just kind of vibes. So maybe that will help the Jets. Jeff Ulbrich making his head coach debut as interim head coach. His defense has been brilliant the past couple of years. I know Salah has got a lot of credit for that, and which he should. He's head coach. He obviously is that, but his work seems to be brilliant as well. And the players, he's very respected. The players love him. That's what's coming out today. That's why he's interim head coach. So it'll be very interesting to see how he does it'd be a more interesting game than it was, like I said earlier this morning. And how he influences the offense as well. Like we said before, Hackett came under a lot of fire, which deservedly so. But this Bills game, and I think games afterwards, obviously, will really show how much came from the head, from Rob Saleh in terms of conservative play calling, offensive schemes. How much influence did he actually have? So, if I was Ulbrich, I would say let's go for it. The Bills have weirdly struggled against the Jets in the past couple of years, especially at MetLife. So why not? This is your audition to become a head coach, whether it's at the Jets or elsewhere. Go for it. Hackett, Rodgers. This is the time to save each other and to save each other's careers. Crack on. But the Bills are tough, obviously. The Josh Allen injury, head kind of, I don't even know if it's an injury, his head off the turf. There's a lot of controversy about that because I didn't watch the game, admittedly, but kind of saw that they gave him smelling salts and kind of let him go back in the game, which is a bit questionable if that's what's happened. So that'll be one to keep an eye on. It'll be a tough game. I'm going to go with the Jets because, like I said, that new manager bounce, new head coach bounce. And it's, the Johnsons clearly want to save the season. You need to win against the Bills, otherwise you go 2-4 and you're falling behind. And, prime time, go for it. Just go for it. That's all I can say to the Jets. So I'm going to go with the Jets, but I do appreciate why you wouldn't go for the Jets here.
Yeah, I'm not going for the Jets.
Yeah.
I'm going for the Bills. I mean, you mentioned new manager bounce. I think the Raiders are showing it this year with Antonio Pierce. That maybe it's, it is just a honeymoon period. And I do think that could work, but I just think that the Bills, I mean, I've been high on the Bills. They haven't really done well the last couple of games, but they, they had obviously a off day against the Ravens, but against the Texans, they ran it close, and I think they'll get back to I don't see a Bills team losing 3 games in a row. I think 2 games they've done before, but I think certainly since they've had Josh Allen there, in his prime, I don't see him losing 3 games in a row. I think they get back to winning ways. They get the win here and move, obviously, for now, 2 wins clear of the rest because we're on a bye week. 1 win for the Pats so far, and the Jets will be on 2-4 if they lose this game. So, yeah, the Bills for me will get this win, and they'll get back to winning ways on Monday Night Football. So that is really it. We've only got 2 different scores to each other. So I've gone for the Lions beating the Cowboys. Olivia's gone for the Cowboys. Olivia went for her Jets to beat the Bills. I went for the Bills. Otherwise, you've both gone for wins for the Niners, Bears, Ravens, Packers, Texans, Bucks, Eagles, Colts, Chargers, Steelers, Falcons, and the Bengals. So that is where we will end our Week 6 preview. So, Olivia, once again, thanks for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. It's been a bit of a crazy day, so you booked me at the right time. The news break there, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't believe our luck when, we basically planned to get you on for the last week. I knew you were going to be at the game, and I knew it's obviously Jets are playing the Bills on a prime time. And yeah, when the news broke earlier today, it was like, music to our ears. So yeah, good to have you on, and we'll get you on, I'm sure, some point in the rest of the season. But in the meantime, this has been our Week 6 preview with myself, your host, Andy Davis, and our guest today, Olivia Peebles. And we'll see you guys for our next episode.